Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, Massachusetts.
There was going to be Richard. He was going to do a thing on. I think he said he was thinking.
Welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, where we think religious questions are important, but we want to work out our own answers, where we gather to share ideas and support one another. We gather this hour as people of faith, having sorrows and joys and needs and gifts. We like this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and in celebration of the life we share together. Can we join, please, in our opening hymn, number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door.
May nothing evil cross this door, and may your fortune never try about these windows with a roar, and rain go by. My faith made strong, the rafters will withstand the battering of the storm. This powerful wall, the world grown chill, will keep you warm. We shall walk softly through these rooms, touching our lips with gold, till heaven every casual prayer comes into a shrine. And though these sheltering walls are thin, may the gate be strong to keep it out and hold love in.
Please stay standing for a second and join in the affirmation in the order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine, us to be covenant with each other and with God. This is the invocation. Nothing worth doing is completed in our lifetime. Therefore, we're saved by hope. Nothing true or beautiful or good makes complete sense in any immediate context of history. Therefore, we are saved by faith. And nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. Therefore, we're saved by love. Our MLK potluck supper is a week from tomorrow, Monday the 15th. Gather and set up at the church at 5, the supper's at 6. Our annual meeting is after the service on Sunday the 21st, that's in 2 weeks. We have at least one, maybe two vacancies on the standing committee, maybe others. And this is kind of a stupid announcement for those of you who are here, I guess, but it occurred to us this morning with the possibility of having to cancel church because of snow, that there are some people whose phone numbers we don't know. And if we could have your phone number, we'd appreciate it. We promise we will not be telemarketers. We will not call, every day for the rest of your life with the latest offer. It's just so we can tell people if church is canceled for some reason. That's the only reason. Are there other announcements?
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to say that I love the Serenity prayer. It has, I don't use the word God very often, but because it seems to fit in that prayer, I let it be. So thank you for being here and doing that. And I want to let everyone know that Ken and Hughes will be here next week. I can't remember the name of his, I love his sermon. A letter from God. Thank you for having a memory. I think we should want to hear what God has to say in correspondence. Thank you.
Yeah. Others? I will come back to sorry, Steve.
Just expanding on Richard's announcement of the MLK potluck. Actually, we set up at 5 food prep at 5:30, and then we actually meet at 6. It's done in conjunction with the Our Revolution group that meets monthly. Thus far, I have a vegetarian fried rice, hot vegetables, so also vegetarian, and then they meat fried rice, some sandwiches, meat pies, and I asked wonderful woman Lisa at Sweet Rose Cafe. They closed on Mondays, so I invited her. But I also invited her to do this what to sell on Sunday. So hopefully we'll have some sweets for sweet roast today. That will be added to the menu. There were other items that were suggested, but I don't remember. So that's why it's called potluck.
Okay.
Don't forget, he's still accepting donations for the homeless in our community.
I'll go back up there in a minute. I'll go back up there in a minute. Did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to talk about what the sun does. If it's, this is south. Right?
Yes.
This is west. This is east. On the first day of summer, the sun comes up way over there, way north of due east, and it goes up about 48 degrees, like this. Can you see it up there? It never gets overhead, but it gets up to about 82 degrees or something like that. It's that high at noon. And then it comes down this way, and it sets way over there, north of due west.
What day is that? Summer?
First day of summer, the sun solstice, yeah. By the equinox at the end of September, on that day, the sun comes up straight east. And it's the same 45-degree angle, but of course it doesn't get up anywhere near as high. And it sets straight west, right there, right where the X. And so it's up a shorter time, and it's not as high. By Halloween, this process of the sun going away has started to scare people. This is why Halloween is connected with ghosts and goblins and fear. In ancient times, people knew that the previous year the sun had stopped retreating, but they didn't know why. So there was always a possibility that the sun wouldn't stop retreating this year. It's really quite alarming by the time you get to the winter solstice. The winter solstice, the sun comes up over there, way south of due east, and that 45-degree angle doesn't take it up very high at all. And it sets way over there, way south of due west. We're aware of the winter solstice because the people on the weather reports tell us about it. The experts tell us about it. The shortest day, December 21st. But it's pretty abstract. In ancient times, they couldn't be sure that the sun had stopped retreating for a few days. If you study shadows every day right at noon, you could see after a few days that the shadows were getting a little shorter, meaning the sun was a little higher. And so it was on December 25th that in ancient times they celebrated the return of the sun. There was a big celebration in Rome called the Feast of Sol Invictus, Inconquerable Sun. But then Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, and Christians took over December 25th for the birthday of Jesus. And Christmas nowadays is like a powerful radio station that drowns out all the others nearby. And for most people, the solstice doesn't mean much. But now, I think, is the time to appreciate it. It's been 2 weeks. We're animals. We're animals. We don't like dark. We don't like cold. We don't like death. And for months, there's been less light every day, and it's been getting colder, and so many plants are dying, and the birds go away, and the animals flee. But now, it's about 2 weeks since the solstice now. And now, we can feel it. we've noticed, I think, I'll bet everybody has noticed that the sun is setting in not quite the same place as it did, and the day's a little longer. We can feel it in our bones. Our animal nature now is aware that, yes, the sun is coming back. So there's light, and well, yes, it's still getting colder, but that's because the atmosphere takes a while to react to the longer days. So it's going to get colder for another week or two, but then it'll turn around. We know that warmth is coming back because the sun is coming back. There's going to be another spring. Soon there'll be little fragile shoots coming out of the earth, and the birds will come back, and the animals will come back. And in not long after that, we can go outside wearing almost nothing and be perfectly comfortable. We can feel that the sun is coming back. So Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Let's take a breath and then in a minute or so, sing Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come up to me. Sing in my heart. It's in my sleep. Move in your hand. Giving life a shape of justice. For me close, wings set me free. Spirit of love,
I'm reading from a book called The Serenity Prayer by Elizabeth Sifton that was published about 20 years ago. Americans call it the Serenity Prayer, which is how it's known to those who encounter it in Alcoholics Anonymous. The reassuring calm of the word serenity is soothing, though to call it the courage prayer might better emphasize the demanding spiritual effort that it recommends. People usually assume it's very old, for its spiritual clarity seems unusual for our soupy and compromised times. People say, surely it was composed by an ancient rabbi, or maybe it's Stoic, or maybe it was translated from Latin or Hebrew, or maybe even Scottish. In Germany, false confidence about the prayer's venerable antiquity has gone further. And it is superbly centered on the presumption that, of course, the prayer is German. Not long after Hitler's final defeat in 1945, not long after the four victorious Allied powers had divided Germany's ruined provinces into West Germany, East Germany, when its destroyed economy and its spirit were slowly being rebuilt, the prayer began to be cited by preachers in Germany as a wonderful 18th century German guide to wisdom. Within a few years of the founding of a new democratic German state in the old British, French, and American occupation zones, Politicians quoted it as a German prayer in morale-building speeches. And a half century later, they're still doing it. And I'll bet today they're still doing it, even though the book is 20 years old. How dramatic the irony then that the actual author was an American of German descent, but an American who wrote the prayer in the United States in 1943 at the height of the war against Germany. And in fact, not just in the US, but in Massachusetts. You can find the Serenity prayer on posters, postcards, coffee cups, dish towels, samplers, stained glass windows, tattoos. If whoever wrote it had copyrighted it, trademarked it, he'd be a billionaire, or she'd be a billionaire. In AA, it's commonly felt that the prayer was probably composed by Bill W., or one of the other founders of AA. Catholics will assure you that it was composed by Francis of Assisi. And Germans, of course, think it's of ancient German origin. The author was Reinhold Niebuhr. Reinhold Niebuhr, a German American. Those of us who live in New England, are not too aware of this, but there was a tremendous German immigration into this country in the 19th century, in the early 20th century, mostly to the Midwest. Deo's parents were, your grandparents were part of that, and you were born in the Midwest. Yeah. Reinhold Niebuhr was born in Missouri in 1892. His parents had been born in Germany. If he had been born 25 years later, he would have had a different first name, because 25 years later was during World War I, when German Americans were looked on with hostility. They were the enemy, or maybe collaborating with the enemy. And German Americans born then got names like Charlie and Bob, American-sounding names. But in 1892 in Missouri, you could be proud of being German American, so they proudly gave him the very German-sounding first name, Reinhold. Reinhold. He became a minister in a denomination called the Evangelical Lutheran Synod, which we don't have many such churches around here. That group merged with the New England Congregationalists in 1956 and became the United Church of Christ. So you should think of him as sort of a Congregationalist, even though technically that wasn't true. But a liberal Protestant. He served a church in a little farm town in Illinois. That was his first church as a young man. And then later he served a great big church in Detroit and became very involved with Well, he had been involved with the plight, the struggles of small farmers at this little farming town in Illinois. But in Detroit, he became involved with the struggle of the auto workers to unionize, and he helped them to unionize. And so he became aware of the struggles of big city factory workers. Later, he became a professor at Union Theological Seminary in New York City. That's a seminary for liberal Protestants, Congregationalists, some Baptists, some Presbyterians, some Methodists certainly, some UUs. At Union Theological Seminary, he met his wife, an extraordinary woman she was English. She was born in England. Her name was Ursula Keppel Compton. She had a hyphenated last name, as the English frequently do. Ursula Keppel Compton graduated from Oxford University with flying colors and came to the United States to get a master's degree in theology. And she went to Union Theological Seminary in New York City, where she met Reinhold Niebuhr, who was 15 years older than she was. When they met, she was 22 and he was 37. 2 years later, they got married and had 2 kids. And one of those kids was Elizabeth Sifton, the woman who wrote the book from which I just read. So she knew what she was talking about. Ursula, after getting her master's degree at Union Theological Seminary, became a professor at Barnard College in New York. That was a women's college right next to Columbia University. I'm not sure it has much of an independent existence anymore now that Columbia admits women, right? But back then, Columbia and Harvard were men only, so there was Radcliffe up here and Barnard near Columbia. She was a professor at Columbia for a long time. For 20 years, Reinhold and Ursula and their 2 kids spent as much of the summer as they could manage in a little town in the Berkshires called Heath. Heath, H-E-A-T-H. If you've ever driven the Mohawk Trail, which is the part of Massachusetts Route 2 that goes from Greenfield on the Connecticut River west all the way to Williamstown on the New York border, that section of Route 2 is called the Mohawk Trail, and it goes through Heath. It goes through a corner of Heath. And Heath was not a tourist town. There were a few summer people who usually, typically for the Berkshires, were New Yorkers. There were a few summer people, but it was just a farm town. It wasn't a trendy place like, West Stockbridge or Lenox or someplace like that. I say they summered in Heath. Reinhold couldn't always spend the whole summer, but Ursula and the kids spent the whole summer, and he spent as much time as he could. When the family was in Heath, they attended the Heath Union Church. The Heath Union Church Heath is so small that all the Protestants had to go to a single church. And it was the Heath Union Church. It was for all Protestants. Episcopalians went there, Congregationalists went there, Methodists went there, Baptists went, everybody went there. And the Niebuhrs went there. And occasionally Reinhold Niebuhr was the guest preacher. And on one Sunday in 1943, he ended his sermon and delivered what we call the Serenity prayer for the first time. The prayer spread almost immediately. One of the people in the congregation that day was another New Yorker, another summer person, who was an officer in what was called the Federal Council of Churches, which today is called the National Council of Churches of Christ. It's a big umbrella organization for liberal Protestant churches. And he said, oh, that's nice. Can I use that? I'll give you credit, of course. And Reinhold Niebuhr said, no, you don't give credit for prayer. This is the guy who could have been a billionaire if he had trademarked it. No, you don't do that. So now the Federal Council of Churches was helping USO, the Service People's Organization, to provide religious services for American servicemen everywhere, but in particular in Europe. And it happened that there was a soldier somewhere on the front. This is World War II now. A soldier at one of these services somewhere in Europe, I don't know where, who was active in AA, heard the prayer at a service delivered by someone from the Federal Council of Churches. And that's how AA learned about it. And AA immediately improved it. Reinhold Niebuhr's original version had more words, more concepts. It was more, clearly it's the same thought. But here's his original version. God, give us grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed. Courage to change the things that should be changed. And the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. I mean, clearly it's the same sentiment, but it's much less poetic, right? God, grant me the serenity is much simpler than God, give us grace to accept with serenity. And courage to change the things I can is more poetic than courage to change the things that should be changed. And the wisdom to know the difference is a lot more simple and direct than, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. You know, I think all those AA changes are improvements. There's one thing I want to focus on today. AA changed it from a first-person plural prayer, a prayer about us and we and our, to a first-person singular prayer, a prayer about I and me. And for AA, that's completely appropriate, right? People in AA are waging, with help, but waging a very private, personal struggle. So it's very appropriate that they did that. But I'd like to talk about it as a first-person plural prayer. Prayers usually are first-person plural, like the most famous prayer, the one that, whether you like it or not, I bet you know this. Yes, our Father, right, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. By the way, that's where it ends. The Catholics are right. Protestants add, for thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. But that's a response from the Mass that was accidentally attached to the prayer in the King James Bible, which was the standard Bible of Protestants. So they added that, but the Catholics are right. It ends with deliver us from evil. In this kind of prayer, the most important, so let me, if you don't mind, let me spend 30 seconds giving you my take on the Our Father. The first part is just, a polite saying, hi, God, right? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Then thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's saying, give us justice. That's what that means. The kingdom is the God's empire that Jesus preached. And that was his vision of what the world could be like if there were peace and justice and enough to go around. Justice in particular, because if there's justice, there's almost certainly going to be peace and enough to go around. So that just means give us justice. And then the next part is give us bread, give us food, give us this day our daily bread. And then I don't want to say the rest is not important, but it's less significant to me. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. In a community of desperately poor people, which Jesus was preaching to, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of tension between people. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. I kind of like that. What they're saying there is, God, don't make our every waking moment a moral crisis. Give us a little slack, right? That's what that is. Give us a little slack. So The Our Father, the important things about the Our Father and most good prayers are in the middle. What's important about the Our Father is give us justice, this is what we need. Give us bread, this is what we need. Well, the center of Niebuhr's prayer is, God, give us courage to change the things that should be changed. Or in the AA version, courage to change the things I can. I think that's why Elizabeth Sifton suggested that instead of being called a Serenity prayer, perhaps it could be called a courage prayer, because that's the center of the prayer. And think about what was in Reinhold Niebuhr's mind in 1943. He had grown up as this proud part of this German community in Missouri, speaking German. His parents spoke German. He spoke German at home till he went to school and had a German accent his whole life. He was proud to be a German American, and then World War I came in 1914 when he was 22, and suddenly German Americans are looked on with suspicion, they're vilified. This had an effect on him. And of course, the war itself was a horrible thing. It seemed to have no apparent purpose, and yet ground up huge numbers of lives. And then in the 20s, it still wasn't real good to be a German American. That anti-German sentiment lasted because of the war and what the war had done. And then in the 30s, Germany started going bad again with Hitler, with the rise of Hitler, what was going on. And now in 1943, it's World War II. And I don't think we knew yet what was happening to Jews in Germany, but we knew from what they were doing in the 30s, they certainly were persecuting Jews on some level, not just Jews, but gay people and people with mental illnesses and gypsies and people, they talk a lot about 6 million Jews, 6 million. Yeah, that's true. But 11 million people died in those camps. There were another 5 million people. The mentally ill, the gypsies, 1 million gypsies. And some captured soldiers, but it's 11 million people. He didn't know all those details, but I kind of like the prayer myself because we're in a time like that, right? We've got at least 2 stupid wars going on in the world. They seem completely pointless. We have a lot of cultural craziness happening with free speech being suppressed all over the country. We have a political crisis coming with the presidential election. And just in our homes, every time I get an email from someone I don't know, I'm afraid. Should I open it, or is there a virus attached to it? Is it safe to insert my credit card at Walgreens, or has someone put what they call a skimmer there to steal all my information? Courage we need, I need. So that's why I wanted to talk about it today. I want to recommend it as a prayer. And now for the support of this congregation and its work, the morning offering will be gratefully received, and I hope freely given. Standing in the need of prayer. Yeah. All of Nancy's music has the word prayer in it, I think. Yeah. This is our time for sharing joys and concerns. The theory is that a joy shared is multiplied and a concern shared is divided.
Just a little light joy in connection with the German comments made. Our grandson, Benjamin, is a German citizen and an American citizen, and lives in Switzerland. And he's two. And his two friends talk about not Charlie or Sam or whatever. I named him Moritz and Gustav.
That's cute.
And then one's French and one's Hungarian, actually.
Switzerland.
Yeah.
I was talking about the anti-German feeling. Our family has a piano in northern Ontario, and I was Googling something about Ontario and came across Kitchener, Ontario, which is kind of near London, Ontario, southwestern Ontario. Turns out Kitchener was originally called Berlin or Berlin, Ontario, until World War I. It was a very heavily German populated area that had all sorts of businesses, one thing and another. During World War II, there were anti-German riots and killings, and a lot of them performed by the local militia in Ontario. And then the name was changed to Kitchener, Kitchener was a general or somebody, or I'm not quite sure who he was, but he was some sort of a British or Canadian war hero. So it all got kind of pushed around and covered up. It's not just us.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about my growing up in a German community in the Midwest. Not unusual. The German communities were often built around the church, so people could go within 2 or 3 miles when they went by horse and buggy to church, and there was always a manger built up so the horses could be protected from rain or snow, and people would ride to church and they'd have the church was the center, the social center of the entire community. But my grandfather often told stories about between World War I and World War II, the local newspaper was so sympathetic to the Nazi movement, and they would print Nazi swastikas around a paragraph or a story within the newspaper. So that this is calling people to the injustices of going on in Europe and so forth. So it was very good timing. And by the time I came along after World War II, the entire community switched to speaking English. So I can still hear words, a little bit in German, get to see what they are.
What do you mean, quit speaking German? They all quit speaking German.
Yeah, they quit speaking German.
Yeah.
Did I say that wrong? Oh, okay. Yeah. So, and I heard German as a child, particularly if they wanted to talk to something about something that I didn't need to hear. They would speak German. But yeah, and so it's one of my joys looking back at the community. But one of my concerns is that I have a youngest son who is undiagnosed, but seems to have the mindset of a high functioning autistic person, which apparently there are a lot in this world, because there are geniuses who can't get along with anybody, you know. But he's been struggling with this in the holidays, as you might expect. It's a really hard time for a person with autism, because there's so much emotion tied with it. He chose this year to become homeless for no inexplicable reason. He just, because that's what he needed to do. And we've kept in touch with him by text, because he doesn't really share his feelings about things, only, details of different things. But yesterday he decided that he was sick and tired of sleeping in his car, and he came over to our house. We filled up on pizza and everything we could do to help him. He was running a low grade temperature and a cough. Yeah, so he's probably better off some someplace. But I do ask your prayers in dealing with this kind of mental illness. There's really not a lot I can do about it. It is what it is. It's possibly genetic. We're seeing that and explain some of the absurd behavior that was in my family as a child. Well, anyway, I'm asking for your prayers to help my son Ben to somehow be able to adjust to the culture and have a productive life. Thank you.
Thank you. Concern, I mentioned to Richard and to Eric in the previous gathering that on one of the Jewish holidays, I have been approached by a couple of leaders of the Bethel, Temple Bethel, which is just located a few blocks from here, that they wanted to know if I knew if the Unitarian Church was possibly available for sale. And I told them, Ken Littman, an attorney just a block from here, and Ricky Schwartz, who owns the Congress store in the South End. I told him, I said, no, I don't think that we have any intent. But interestingly, I've been thinking about that, not only because they put their building up for sale. It's an incredible structure, but it's just too much for their dwindling congregation. And Richard shared with me that probably our youth caucus of this church consists of Donald, who's 59. So he's the boy, and I gather. So I thought, that I think the standing committee, I like, since I'm not public, referring something to someone else, where I don't have to be involved. So, I'd be happy to be involved. But I thought that maybe the standing committee might consider this concern. Richard shared with me that he knew of a situation where the Unitarians and the Jewish community shared a geographic space or building north of Fall River. And I think if there were an interest in reaching out to the Temple Bethel community to pursue options, I mean, it might be something that could be mutually beneficial. I don't know anything about finances of our congregation, but I know that we're always concerned about resources to fix things. So possibly having another congregation sharing that space could help with some resources. And then certainly it would be a very altruistic outreach if we thought that we might in some way help. They could sell that building tomorrow and find themselves looking for a space, so maybe anything from, we have a space that might temporarily be your place, or maybe something more long term. So I'll leave it to the standing committee to do all on that possibility, and that's my concern.
I have a joy and a concern. My joy is knowing that I'm finally getting my surgeries and stuff organized with my doctors. I'm gonna have a hernia operation on Tuesday, gonna see them on Wednesday, gonna do my shoulder surgery, and then in February, we'll get my heart surgery. So everything is going in the right direction, as long as I don't croak beforehand, but on the other hand, I have a wish to get all your prayers so that things will go smoothly. Thank you.
Could we join in our closing hymn number 22, Dear Weaver of Our Lives' Design?
Dear weaver of our lives in design, whose patterns all obey, with skillful fingers we guide the sturdy threads that with the serpent life untangle of our days. Take up the fabric of our lives with hands that gently hold, binding the ragged edge that would sunder, and that hanging would tear and mend our raveling souls. Eyes that in the plainest cloth of beauty see, discerning us our richest hues, show us the patterns we use to set our spirits free.
I don't remember how that Theodore Parker thing starts. May ours be a religion that, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual, works of love. I got it. Amen.